In this video, I will show you a few pro tips for drilling with a doweling jig. And we will finish making the melamine face chipboard bookshelf. This piece was cut to the exact same length as the shelves. This will be a reinforcement. And it is only edge banded here. I also asked them to cut this strip to the same length as the shelves. This will be the kickplate, and it is also edge banded only here. These pieces were cut from a smaller board that I bought separately. For the first piece, the reinforcement, I drill a couple of holes into the edge, in the edge with no edge banding, and with the depth adjustment that I used to drill the edges of the shelves in the previous video. But for now, I won't insert the dowels here. I also drill 2 holes to each side. I do this the same way as I did when drilling the edges of the shelves. And here, on the sides of this reinforcement, I can now insert the dowels. Now I check that on the kickplate the drill bit won't come out the other side. And I also drill a couple of holes. Again, I won't insert the dowels yet. Additionally, I need to drill a hole into these narrow edges of this piece. But I can't secure the doweling jig properly there. However, if I place these 2 pieces like this, held together with a clamp, I can now secure the doweling jig and drill a perfectly centered hole. Here, I can already glue in one of these wooden dowels. And I drill the hole on the other side of this piece. Then I insert the dowel. This is one of the sides of the bookshelf. I have the bottom shelf in place, but without pressing the dowels into the holes. So, the kickplate goes here underneath the shelf. But I don't want it to be flush with the front of the bookshelf. I want to move the kickplate back by about 8 millimeters. So I need to draw a line at 8 millimeters, plus have the thickness of the board. Then I will draw the line at about 16 millimeters from the front of the bookcase. And I'll also draw the line on the underside of the shelf. So I drew the line on this side, on the underside of the shelf, and on the other side. To make it clear, here are the lines to install the kickplate. And here will go shelf number 2, with the reinforcement underneath and at the back of the shelf. So, I need to draw the line where to drill on the back and underside of this shelf, and here, on the sides of the bookshelf. I'm going to draw the lines at the same distance as those I made for the baseboard. In the previous video, I showed how I set the depth stop, to drill in the edge, and also to drill in the face of the boards. And now, this is the underside of shelf number 2 with the lines I just drew. And this is the reinforcement with that sticker that tells me which side is the front. The reinforcement goes like this. I let it drop back like this, and place it against the underside of the shelf. Here I have the doweling jig. I align the side marks of the doweling jig right on the line. I move the lower stop against the edge of the board. and lock it. This way, it serves to drill always at the same distance from the edge of the board, and on the lines. Now I fit the front of the jig onto one of the dowels. I push it until the lower stop is against the edge of the board. I make sure the reinforcement is against the underside of the shelf. Drill the first hole. And drill the second hole. I secure the shelf on the other side of the bookshelf, still without pressing the dowels into the holes, and drill the corresponding holes in this side of the bookshelf. I made sure to place the wooden dowel at a sufficient distance from the edge to be able to fit the doweling jig here. Now I can insert the wooden dowels into the edge of the reinforcement. Now this is shelf number 2. And here on the underside is the line where the reinforcement will go, with the sticker indicating the front of the bookshelf. I turn this around. And let the reinforcement drop down like this. I continue with the doweling jig's lower stop in the same position. I fit the jig onto the dowel and push it until the stop reaches the edge of the board. I make sure the edges on both sides are perfectly flush. And drill the 2 holes following the same procedure. I feel comfortable doing it this way, but to prevent anything from moving, we can clamp the boards to the table with some clamps. Finally, I check that everything went well. The next step is to drill the holes for the kickplate. Here goes the bottom shelf, on this side of the bookshelf. And I want to drill on this line. This is the piece I use to keep the shelves vertical. I place the bottom shelf, but without pressing the dowels into the holes. And I secure the shelf vertically with the help of some clamps. If we look from the front of the bookshelf, I have to drill on this line. The tape shows which face is the front. The kickplate goes like this below the shelf. I let it drop down like this towards the back. I keep it against the underside of the shelf. With the help of the doweling jig, I position the kickplate. The lower stop is still adjusted the same. I carefully remove the shelf to avoid shifting the kickplate. And drill the hole. The reason for removing the shelf is to avoid hitting it with the drill. Instead of removing the shelf, I could do the same thing I'm going to do on the other side of the bookshelf. It looks like it will fit well. So now I'm going to drill the other side of the bookshelf. The kickplate goes like this, with the tape towards the front. I let it drop towards the back. But now, it turns out that I cannot fit the doweling jig there. In the previous case, it was the drill that would hit against the shelf. So, if I move the shelf back like this, These two dowels do not enter in the holes. But I have these two dowels. So if I turn the shelf like this, those two dowels do match the holes. I fit them in, but do not press them. I reposition the clamps and the support. And now I can use the doweling jig and drill without any problems. I like it will fit well. Now I can glue the dowels into this edge of the kickplate. So this is the bottom shelf, and the kickplate goes here, with the piece of tape facing the front. I turn this around like this. And I am going to drill the dowel holes on the line. The jig has the lower stop in the same position. I fit the wooden dowel into the jig. I adjust the sides of the kickplate until they are flush with the sides of the shelf. And with the jig stop against the edge of the shelf, I drill the two holes. To prevent it from moving, we can secure the kickplate with some clamps. Once all the holes are drilled, I make sure the inside of the holes is clean of sawdust. So now I start by gluing the reinforcement underneath shelf number 2. I glue both pieces to one side of the bookshelf. I use a mallet and a wooden block to carefully tap until the dowels are fully inserted into the holes. I glue the kickplate under shelf number 4. Glue both pieces to the side. Glue the other two shelves. Apply glue to the holes on the other side of the bookshelf. I make sure that all the dowels are on their corresponding holes. And carefully tap until all these dowel joints are well seated. We have to be careful when applying carpenter's glue into the holes. If we use too much glue, it will create too much pressure and make it harder to fully insert the dowels. If you don't have experience, it is a good idea to practice with some leftover board pieces before starting to glue the bookshelf. Everything is at 90 degrees. I clamp the bookshelf with strap clamps and also with some bar clamp. I check that everything is still at 90 degrees. And let the carpenter's glue dry. And that is how I finished making this nice bookshelf. This type of doweling jig is very helpful for making pieces of furniture like this one. Using this type of doweling jig, joining boards with dowel joints is very easy. I leave links to the first 2 videos in this series about making the bookshelf. And I also include a link to the article on my website, where you can find a drilling guide like this one, and more information about making this bookshelf. Thanks for watching the video.